this. Gary's first day was March of '89. We're taking our team picture. Right in the team picture, we have a fight.
My first day on the job.
That was your first day?
Yeah, first day on the job.
On the job.
I know who was there too. Also, was it Russ Salzman?
Yes, Salzburg.
Salzburg?
Yeah.
It was his first day.
Yeah.
He came down the next day.
Yeah.
They flew him down the next day because it was a big story.
Exactly.
And I lit into him. I ripped him a new one. And I had to go up and after I calmed down after 48 hours, I went up to him and I apologized.
Well, I mean, you and Darryl were kissing in the middle of the team picture. That got national publicity. Well,
we never kissed.
That picture got more publicity than any team picture in the history of team pictures.
Yes, that was quite something.
But it got calmed down after that. It was
Ronnie was the first one that stepped. I remember.
That's right.
Ronnie was the one that stepped in between us. I wasn't going to go after Darryl.
Yeah.
And this kind of gave me a love tap.
Yeah. Jay Horwitz with special editions, amazing conversations with my old friends, Gary Cohn, Keith Hernandez, Ron Darley. Back in St. Lucie in the spring of '06, did you think 20 years later you guys would be sitting here today?
Sitting anywhere would have been
No,
really a positive thing.
20 years at SNY is a great accomplishment.
I mean, we didn't know what we were doing when we first started, so we were just kind of flying in the dark, trying to survive.
So when SNY was founded in '06, the mantra was be fair, be objective. The Mets lost 20-1. You weren't going to talk about the one run. How much do you think that added to the broadcast that you're going to give the people a fair broadcast?
Well, I think that ever since I started with the Mets, this goes back to my radio days, we were always given free rein to be honest, because what's the point of having commentators unless they're honest? If you tell everybody that things are sunshine and roses when they're not, then when things are good, you have nothing to aspire to. And you don't have good without bad. And, it seems to me like the logical thing to do, but kudos to everybody involved, ownership, the radio station I worked for, and now SNY, that we've been allowed to do those things.
You guys feel you could say what you need to say without getting a call? Or?
Never really gotten a call, and you know me, I've said a few things that...
No, really bad. I didn't know that, Keith. You have?
But I will say this. Fred Wilpon came up to me, and I'm sure Gary and Ron, and more than maybe a half dozen times and said, keep it up. We want a fair broadcast. Be honest for the fans. So kudos to Fred.
Jay, all we had was our credibility. We didn't have any experience. We were just learning the job, so we had our credibility. And I think that, I don't know, when you're a player, you have a relationship with the fans. But when you're a TV announcer, you have a really special relationship with the fans. And if they're throwing a shoe at the TV, we got to be able to address that,
How much do you think it's important that you guys, you stayed 20 years, Greg Picker, senior coordinating producer, been there for 20 years. Steve Gelbs, signed for 12 years. This is great continuity. You think that it's important that you guys haven't had a lot of changes?
I mean, I think one of the advantages of having people who have lived the Mets for a long time, whether as a fan or as a player, is that we have some institutional memory. And I do think sometimes longevity is its own reward in this business. The longer you're here, the more you know. But I think Greg Picker doesn't get enough credit. He has been the linchpin behind this entire operation. His creativity keeps pushing us further and further to do things that, otherwise we might be uncomfortable with.
What do you guys think?
Well, I think we were fortunate to have Bill Webb as our director.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on
Bill
Bill,
going way back to
Yes,
WOR.
Right.
And I learned from Bill when I first started in this business. And Bill passed on to John DeMarsico, that is now our director, that's already won an Emmy. And I think that has made everything seamless. When we have changes, which are minimal, it's just like getting into your shoes in the morning.
Yeah.
I think, I honestly think that Greg Picker gets too much of the credit. But we never bring this name up. But I think Kirk Gowdy When he first started this, to hire who was going to be on this network, some people who were really great were turned down because they wanted to make sure that they had 3 announcers who were going to do most of the games, if not all of the games. And I think that is really important to the fans for the New York Mets, is that it's been us 3, really. That's it for 20 years. And good, bad, or indifferent, they appreciate us, and we appreciate them.
Well, Greg had told me one of the things, he wanted to put you guys in different environments, like going to stands to do a game, baseball card stuff with a media guide. Keith, one time you walked the bridge in Pittsburgh, I forget, didn't you?
With Gary.
It was Gary.
The Clemente Bridge.
Yeah. How important is that to put you guys in a different kind of environment a lot?
I just think Greg gets restless. The one thing about it is we all come from different places, right? I came from doing baseball every day on the radio. Keith came from dabbling in it for a few years. Ronnie came from just 1 year in Washington, where he really didn't have a lot of direction. And Greg came from ESPN and USA networks, where he was doing special events. So he was doing like Wimbledon and doing that for 2 weeks, but not doing everyday baseball. So I think part of what informs our broadcast is that we come from different places, and in Greg's case, he comes from not doing games every day, and so he doesn't want it to be the same every day. And I think he tries to spice it up, and sometimes those location changes make it feel a little bit different.
Go ahead, Ronnie.
No, I was just going to say that sometimes he'll ask you to do something, and your first, you really don't want to do it. I mean, because you think it's too far out there and outrageous. I remember the first time he asked me to do an open from the bullpen. I was very nervous because I was nervous about interrupting or being too close to the guy getting ready to pitch, because I know how, I don't know, how angry I could get before games. Anything could set you off, and I just didn't want that to happen. And after I did the open and listening to the pop of the glove, I remember as I was walking away from that, I said, "Oh, that was amazing. Like, I haven't been around the bullpen in a long, long time." And that gave me shivers being close to it again.
I think it reached its apex during the pandemic. We were doing games with nobody in the stands. Yeah. They were in one booth, I was in a different booth. And Greg had the idea to put up a clothesline between the two booths so we could pass notes and snacks back and forth. And that kind of stuff is so silly on the surface, but it plays so well on television. And the level of creativity is really off the charts.
Can I just digress one thing? I want to talk about the first time I met each of you guys. Ronnie was first in April 1982. I was sitting in Limo's house. Maz gets off the phone. I traded 2 goddamn minor league players. Who the hell's Rod Darley and Walt Terrell?
I do have to say, I mean, getting traded on April Fool's Day is kind of a strange thing, right? Yeah. And the first person I meet is Jay.
Yeah, that was
who comes barging in, and he says, "Hey, listen, Jay always talks faster than Jay."
Yes.
And he'd go, "We have to do this. We do a press conference, whatever." Press conference. So we go all the way to not Al Langfield. Yeah. And he asked me in front of like 20 media people for New York, and I'm like, why am I even here? I'm going to AAA, but it was pretty cool.
It got better. And Keith, same story. In June of '83, Frank Casher calls us, "Jay, we traded for an all-star and MVP, but he hates New York. What are you going to do?" I said, "Frank, I'm going to go to Montreal Airport, pick him up in the biggest white limo we can, and I'll soften him." So I go to the wrong gate.
Yes, you did.
I went to the wrong gate.
I went to baggage claim.
Baggage claim, no Jay,
crickets?
no limo.
So I got a cab.
Yeah, you got a cab. I went back to the hotel. I remember. I went back to the hotel, and then you walk in the locker room. What did Kingman say to you when you walked into the locker room the first time?
Kingman was always straight faced. Yeah. Never showed any emotion when he played, right?
Yeah.
And I've never seen him smile.
Yeah.
And he had this ear-to-ear grin on his face, his teeth flashing, his hand out going, "You're welcome to the Mets. You're my ticket out of here."
Did he stems?
Going, "Oh my God."
He said stems, right?
The stems. Yeah. That was Seaver. That was Seaver that caused it a stems.
Yeah.
So that was, Kingman was number 1.
Yeah.
He was the first player to greet me. Seaver was next. I get that from Kingman, and I get the stems from Seaver. And I'm going, I think I'm on a last place team.
It got better though, right, Keith?
Yeah, of course.
And I got Keith, please don't take offense to this. Gary's first day was March of '89. We're taking our team picture. Right in the team picture, we have a fight.
My first day on the job.
That was your first day?
My first day on the job.
Yeah, that's right.
I know who was
I
there
didn't
too.
know that.
Also, was it Russ Salzman?
Yes, Salzburg.
Salzburg?
Yeah.
It was his first day.
Yeah.
He came down the next day.
Yes.
They flew him down the next day because it was a big story.
Exactly.
And I lit into him. I ripped him a new one. And I had to go up and after I calmed down after 48 hours, I went up to him and I apologized.
Well, I mean, you and Darryl were kissing in the middle of the team picture. That got
We weren't
national
kissing.
publicity. Well,
We
we
never
were
kissed.
That picture got more publicity than any team picture in the history of team pictures. I mean,
that was quite something.
but it got calmed down after that. It was
Ronnie was the first one that stepped. I remember.
That's right.
Ronnie was the one that stepped in between us. I wasn't going to go after Darryl.
Yeah.
And he just kind of gave me a love tap.
Yeah. You know, his first day was our friend Mark Levine, the team photographer, was his first day on the job. That was Mark's first team picture.
Oh, really?
Yeah, taking a picture.
Oh my good.
Yeah.
Welcome to paradise.
Well,
Yes.
So let me ask you a question, Gary. How did the roles kind of form? Gary, the quarterback, Keith, offense, Ronnie, pitching. Did it just happen, or was it by nature? Or?
Well, I think Keith had the brilliant line. It was shortly before we went on the air for the first time as a threesome. He says to Ronnie, "You do the pitching, I'll do the hitting."
That was it?
Seems pretty simple,
Yeah.
but
No, I mean, I can't go into pitching with in detail of like Ronnie does. I never cared about a pitcher's his motion. I mean, I cared about his motion, but his mechanics, I could care less. I'd see the ball. I want to hit the ball.
I think what's interesting is that Keith and I were both taught by fathers who loved the game. So we were taught a lot of the same things. And but I think it's morphed. You know, yeah, we definitely did pitching and hitting, and Gary was the quarterback. But you know what? I wanted to be an everyday player. So I'm so intrigued by hitting and hitters and what they think. And Keith's intrigued by pitching. Yeah. So that's part of our shtick as well, is that we love all parts of the game.
and I wanted to be a shortstop, but you know, these things don't always work out.
Gary, you was 89 the first year. Did you know these guys before?
Well, I mean, Keith was still playing, and
Right.
Ronnie was still playing in '89.
Right.
And it was Keith's last year here. Ronnie was here for a couple more years. I can't tell you that I knew them very well. I mean, I knew them from covering them.
Yeah.
I think on some level they knew who I was, but I was the low man on the totem pole on radio. So so we didn't really have a much of a relationship. Now, when Keith started doing TV, we started to interact a little bit more when he would be here for games. But it's completely different now. I mean, once we were lumped together, all we could do was hold hands in the dark, and we're so dependent on each other. And I say this all the time. What's amazing about our booth is, with two such accomplished players, that we have no egos in the booth, that anybody can be the star at any time and nobody needs to be the star at any time. And I think that's pretty rare. I mean, Ronnie works with a lot of different guys.
Yeah.
He has a better sense of that than I do. But I think that what we have is pretty special in that regard, that we can all laugh at ourselves, we can all take a back seat when it's the appropriate thing to do, and I think that's a big part of why it works.
It's very rare, Gary.
I knew that.
Well, how was it good for you guys to work with Ralph Kiner towards the end of his career? What are your favorite Ralph stories?
Oh gosh, my wife. We had a relationship with Ralph when we played.
Yeah.
We loved Ralph, and you'd always catch Ralph whenever he was drinking at a bar, and we'd come out. He and Murph would be at the hotel bar, and we'd wander in after a night game, and we'd sit down and talk. So I've known Ralph for so long. My best memory with Ralph was when I played, and I remember I was feeling pretty good, and Ruthven was pitching in Chicago, and he was painting the outside corner knee high, nipping the black, and 3 at bats. I'm just going, he's got to make a mistake. He didn't. So finally, the 4th at bat, I got up on top of the plate, and I looked in, and he threw it to make him, and I hit a home run. I got in the airplane, getaway day, and I told Ralph that story. And Ralph said, you're the first person that's talked to me about hitting in around 15 years. I said, why wouldn't anybody talk to you about hitting? You're Ralph Kiner.
Yeah.
The
The only
pitcher
time I
faced
got-
you 4
Pardon me,
times.
Sorry.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
My best memory, I knew Ralph as well, and he was beloved by all of us on the 80s teams. I mean, you just loved Ralph. To know Ralph was to love him. But once I became a broadcaster and he did occasional games, it gives me shivers. I get a little emotional about it. He would sit in that booth at 11 o'clock for a 1 o'clock game. He would show up right on time at 11 o'clock, and he would start going into stories. And I would make sure my work was done. So at 11 o'clock to 12, I could just listen to Ralph he would talk about the old days, he'd talk about the new days, he'd talk about how his life is in Palm Springs, he would talk about certain hitters today who weren't getting the job done, like he could be critical as well. But he would do it for like an hour. And in those conversations, you knew what he wanted to talk about during the game.
You know, the great thing about Ralph, when he'd show up for those Sunday games, and he'd basically do every Sunday home game, so we'd see him once every couple of weeks, he would arrive as prepared for those
The little notebooks he had.
Yes.
Right, he had the little notebooks for every team, and he was as prepared as he was when he was working full time. I mean, he could have just shown up and done a star turn. He didn't really have to prepare for the game because he was Ralph Kiner, and he was there because he was such a special piece of Mets history and gave all the viewers a connection with the past. But he was ready. I mean, he knew all the players who were playing that day and knew what was going on around the league. And 90 years old, and he was as sharp as ever. And I mean, we lived for those Sundays. Those were the best days. Every day Ralph was there, that was the best day.
What does Steve Gelbs mean to you guys, the broadcast?
I give Steve an enormous amount of credit. It was not easy coming in and replacing Kevin Burkhardt, who was the best sideline reporter in the history of sideline reporters, and now has obviously gone on to bigger and better things. And it was hard for Steve at first because it took a while for him to find his niche. But I think it clicked in the postseason in 2015 when he did all the locker room interviews, and I think there was some kind of switch that got turned there. And ever since, he's been such an integral part. He's got such an easy way about him, and I think that it took a while for him to get there. But I give him great credit for hanging in.
Well, he's in the clubhouse more than we are, and post and pre. He has to develop a relationship with the players, and the players I've noticed over the years genuinely like him.
Right.
And that's because he's that kind of guy, that kind of personality.
Not like us.
Yeah.
So
Churlish like us.
Remember when he first came in, he was just so tense and nervous. And, it's like watching a rookie player and watching Jose Reyes as a rookie and watching him evolve into the player he evolved to. It's the same thing with Steve, watching him evolve into what he's become, which is now he's doing play-by-play, and once in a while he fills in for Gary, and he does a terrific job play-by-play.
One of the hardest things to do is to make the 3-man booth into a 4-man booth, and Kevin Burkhardt was able to do that. He would do a report that all of us would perk up, and the next thing you know, we'd be having a conversation the rest of the half inning about whatever Kevin had talked about. Gelbs is there now, and that's the best compliment I can pay him.
Well, you guys have been great friends for a long time, and August 26th, going to hand out pins. Are you aware of that? No? Yeah. I guess you have pins in that day. Each gets a different pin. Nobody knows who they get. So it's SNY Pin Day, August 26th.
Fighting over Keith's pins.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, these are great pins.
Ronnie and I have a joke. Whenever we're on the road and Keith's not working the series, the same thing will always happen. Hey, Gary. Hey, Ron. Where's Keith?
So it's going to happen with this, and go, oh my goodness, I got a pin. I get Gary's. I got Ron. Like, where's Keith's pin?
Well,
Jack, I got a question for you. I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
How did I treat you when I was a Cardinal? I don't remember you.
No, you were great. You know what? Well, Kevin wants you to blow and smoke, but Ronnie the same way. No matter good, bad, or indifferent, Keith, you were always there. You never hid. You're always in front of your locker. You were 0 for 4, 4 for 4. one time in San Diego, got 4 hits in a night game. You had, to
5.
you had to make a little trip someplace the next day.
I know.
But you stood.
I hit 4 rockets.
4 rockets.
I mean, bullet line drives. Oh, I mean, it was one of my greatest days.
You know, one game I got to bring up, the game, July 4th game in Atlanta.
Yes.
With 5 for 9 for
I
the
hit
cycle.
this with a cycle. And
Ronnie gets a save.
I didn't get a save
No
because
save.
we had like a 4-run lead,
5-run
5-run lead.
Yep.
But what I'll always remember about that game is because half the team was out of the game,
Yeah.
or thrown out of the
Yeah.
game, or whatever. Coming in, and well, the guys who played all day were just like completely knockered. But I had the adrenaline up because so I was so super aware of everything. And we walk in, and all you could see, for the first time I'd ever heard of it, Chick-fil-A wrappers
Yeah.
and Bud
It was
Light
all
cans.
gone, nothing left.
No, they were all on the floor everywhere. It's
How about
like
Tom Gorman, home run to Rick Camp? Oh my God, that was awesome.
Gorfax.
Gorfax.
I've never been more exhausted in a game in my life. My last at bat, I hit Rick, who pitched? It was
Rick
some
Camp.
little old dead fish sinker right down the pipe, and I just rolled it over. It's the only time I never ran to first base. I ran halfway to first base. I was so tired.
Kid got a cycle of 5 hits in that game too, I think, didn't he, Gary? You
yeah.
well, we've been great friends. My honor, and a real privilege, honor, knowing you guys for a long time. I only do another 20 years on my thing.
You know,
That's-
I don't know about that, Jay.
If I were you, I'd do this every year because it could end anytime.
Day to day, we're all day to day, Jay.
All right. My honor, guys. Thank you for your time,
you,
everybody.
Jay.
Jay.
Thanks, Jay.
RJ, thank
You're
you.
the best,
Appreciate it.
man.
Thanks, guys.